Gotham, by the way, needs to have some, I don't know, they need to change their policies on what they consider insane or whatever. Because some of these guys, it's like, well, he must be insane because he dresses up in a costume and he speaks in riddles. And it's like...
Welcome to SinCast, presented by Cinemasins.
All right, everybody, welcome to the SinCast. This is Chris Atkinson from Cinemasins, joined as always by the voice of Cinemasins, Jeremy Scott.
Sheboygan.
Yep.
Sheboygan. Mm-hmm. And from Music Video Sins, Barrett Share.
Kenosha.
There you go. I knew you'd have another Wisconsin town.
I've got them.
Wisconsin represent as we speak from Tennessee.
On the runoff of Georgia.
That's right. That's right. As we speak, it is January 5th. And 25 years ago today, most people in North America got 12 Monkeys was released back then. It's a 1995 film. It was limited release in December of 1995, but most people got it in the first week of 1996.
Did you get it at were you at Williamson Square at that point?
Yes. And I saw it at Cool Springs because we didn't get it.
Really?
Yeah, I saw a midnight show of it, and it might have been like the weekend it opened or something. So, wow. So yeah, 12 Monkeys is great. Brad Pitt got nominated for an Oscar.
Right? That was obviously his first, right?
I believe so, yeah.
I thought his haircut got nominated for an Oscar.
His haircut also got nominated for an Oscar. It's crazy.
Remember, he famously cut his own hair for that role.
Yeah. I'm
being serious.
No, I remember there being some things, but apparently Brad Pitt looks back on this performance and doesn't like it for some reason.
Is that right?
I can see that.
Yeah, he doesn't like it.
Why can you see that? Like, just it's a little too over the top for...
Yeah, there's about 20% of it that's just manic for the sake of being manic. And I'm not trying to be flippant about mental illness, but the performance-wise, there were just a few little affectations, with few too many times where the fingers were going. I don't know. It's not a bad performance at all. I'm just saying I can see why he might not enjoy it.
I see.
12 Monkeys was a somewhat remake of a French film called La Jetée that came out, and was in La Jetée. If you've ever seen it, it's like a still photograph movie, basically.
Yeah.
It's got the same sort of time travel structure in it, but it's an unusual film. You've never seen, you probably never seen anything like this before. But it's a remake of that, and they've obviously expanded on the story, and they've made a lot of different things out of it and everything. But 12 Monkeys is about a world that is ravaged by a virus, and many years later, once they've figured out time travel and everything, they start sending back, I guess, what would be convicts. So that I guess there's minimal damage to innocent people, quote unquote, or whatever. And they haven't quite perfected it yet. So Bruce Willis keeps being sent back to things like World War I and other places like that. And finally they get him back to where they need to, which is they know the apex center of this virus happened in 1995. And they want to try to find the cause of it, but they don't want him to change anything. They just want him to collect data, basically, is what it comes down to. And he's collecting as much data as he thinks is relevant and everything, but nobody really knows exactly how that virus got started. There's a lot of different things that it could be, and Brad Pitt is one of the reasons why it could be. Because he's commanding this army of the 12 Monkeys, and he's about to let out a bunch of zoo animals and stuff, and and it just happens to be a coincidence to the whole thing.
Yeah, this is interesting because Terry Gilliam had done Brazil before now. Obviously, all the Monty Python stuff. But as a director, mostly known for Brazil, then this, and then, of course, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and then on and on.
Fisher King.
Yeah. But this is maybe the most Terry Gilliam-ish movie that I've ever seen. Like, everything is bizarre.
I don't know. Did you ever see Baron von Munchausen?
Yeah?
Yeah,
I don't remember it being...
Yeah.
I need to go back and watch that.
Time Bandits like that. I mean, those 80s movies are very, and Baron Munchausen. Good God, man. It's like Robin Williams is playing God or something. I can't remember what he was playing.
Oh, it's just insane. It was really off the
rails. 12 Monkeys is great. I don't know if people really considered it great back in this day. I think they kind of considered it. Oh, yeah, that was good. That was a good movie. Brad Pitt is finally showing that he's not just the pretty face and everything. He can actually form characters and things like that. Bruce Willis was at the height of his powers during this point in time. This is when Bruce Willis cares.
He's not on random DVDs covers with a gun staring next to Ryan Phillippe.
Yes, those days are a few years away. Madeline Stowe, who was an all-time crush of mine, is in this. But you have David Morse, and you have Christopher Plummer is in it, and 12 Monkeys is great. So what we wanted to do, though, is kind of discuss some movies that have elements of 12 Monkeys in it, whether it's time travel, experience in psychiatric hospitals, and what else was there on this
global
list?
Catastrophes.
Oh, global catastrophes, and split them up into different kind of movies. So, who wants to start us off?
It feels like you're pointing at, well, if you're pointing at all of us, if you point into your camera, both of us get pointed at. I intentionally went off the beaten path here because, I wanted to. I like to swim against the grain. The first movie I wanted to talk about that has similarities with 12 Monkeys, and we're not comparing quality here, is the Butterfly Effect with Ashton Kutcher and Amy Smart. And what I like about this movie, at least until the very end, and what I think it has in common with 12 Monkeys, is that it suggests you can't change the past, at least not without fucking up something else. And so that's what happens is Ashton Kutcher and his two childhood best friends suffer like child pedophilia from one of the dads. It's like, this movie is truly disgusting if you step back and just like read what it's about. But Ashton Kutcher finds out in college, hey, I'm going to read my old childhood journals, and realizes he gets nosebleeds when he reads his childhood journals, and he can travel to the past, as you do. This is why I got C's in college. And so he tries to fix things so that he and his friends will have better lives. And he just keeps fucking it up in the most ridiculous ways. He ends up a quadruple amputee at one point because of one of his choices, which is ludicrous and over the top, but makes the point pretty well that, and he realizes ultimately the more I mess with things, the more I fuck things up. But then the movie cheats and allows him to go back one last time the day he meets Amy Smart, his best friend, and he intentionally makes her mad so that when her parents get divorced, she won't be friends with him and she'll choose to live with her mom, which she does, which is across town, and then she never suffers the stuff from her dad, and he ends up basically... The movie gives itself the finger, basically, by the end, and says he is allowed to change the past with no butterfly effects.
And they made a different ending too. That, and I think that's what I ended up seeing again. That ending you just described, I think may have been the first one, the theatrical version, and then later on,
cut.
then later on they did this one where he was able to go back to when he was a baby basically and be reborn and everything. And I can't remember all the details of that.
Wikipedia, he travels back to the moment and strangles himself in the womb with his umbilical cord.
What?
Yeah.
So as to prevent the multi-generational curse from continuing. Holy shit.
That's the one that I saw recently.
Holy
You
shit.
the director, right?
Yeah, we talked to Eric Bress earlier this summer, and I watched The Butterfly Effect again just to get some refresh my memory of it and everything, so we could talk to him a little bit about it and everything. And apparently that was his preferred ending. He wanted that in the first place.
That's great. It's so much better.
Yeah,
Strangles himself in the womb with his umbilical cord.
Yeah, man.
That's fucking metal right there, man.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and what was weird about that is that movie made New Line Cinema the most money that year, I guess, or something like that.
Oh yeah,
and
$96 million.
Yeah, and then Eric Bress for the longest time didn't direct anything, which was weird. Like that's one of the questions we asked him was like, so what's been going on since Butterfly? He told that story and everything. He did a movie called Ghosts of War earlier in the season. Butterfly Effect is better on the second go round. I think the first time I watched it, I was so used to Ashton Kutcher in that 70s show that it was hard. It was so hard to get around the Kelso and everything on him. And that's not fair to the movie or him, but got some distance and you watch it now and it's like, oh yeah, this was good. This was actually really good. So
I find it funny that you chose an Ashton Kutcher movie to compare to a Bruce Willis movie.
Yeah. Well, let's just pretend I did that shit on purpose.
They're not together. He was with Demi Moore for quite a while, though, right? Ashton was?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's with the Mila, right?
Mila Kunis.
That's how she prefers you call her, the Mila.
Mm-hmm. That's who he's got.
Justin Timberlake said, drop the and she said, no, it's like it's my whole essence. The Mila.
Yeah, that's who he has kids with, is Mila Kunis. That story is awesome too, because she apparently was single and was on the prowl, so to speak, or whatever, and like saw this dude in backstage, and she was like, "Oh wow, he looks pretty good." And then turns out it's like, Ashton Kutcher, this guy that she'd worked with for many years on a show, and it was perfect timing for them.
Oh, God bless him. God bless him.
Yeah. Of course, we would be remiss if we did not discuss Back to the Future, which, by the way, as much as I love this movie, it's ridiculous about time travel. I think, if time travel were to work this way, Marty is changing way more than just his immediate family's fortunes on.
Yes, and Biff's.
Yeah, exactly. But Back to the Future is an all-timer. It has to be discussed, even though it at this point it may feel tiresome and everything. But 1985, I was 8, perfect timing for that movie to come out. And Back to the Future, it's got a very simplistic look at time travel. I mean, it's very, very, very simple. Like all he has to do is make sure that everything that he fucked when he came back gets unfucked. And that's how he does it. He just goes back and makes sure that everything that happened before happens again. And with maybe a little bit of some extra, now his dad isn't like such a weenie when he comes back and everything, which is another thing, by the way, that would change so many things.
Yeah.
His confidence, like, he would have written that book probably way sooner than 1985, 30 years after he conceived of it and everything. Like the chances of those same kids being there are not even a good chance of that even. But Back to the Future is a great movie, even though it's time travel. It's silly and simplistic.
What a ludicrous plot, like even outside of the time travel. Like the addition of the DeLorean, the mad scientist and the kid, the addition of him being a rock and roll enthusiast, like you know, all the Biff stuff. Like there's just so much, the incest. There's so much that goes into this that like it was Bob Gale that wrote the screenplay with Zemeckis, right?
Yep.
I wonder if this was like a Ghostbusters thing where they started out with a completely different script and like ended up with still a lot of zaniness.
I actually don't even know. It's surprisingly, I don't know the story behind that. I've never heard of anything of them going like they had a different thing going before then, other than the Eric Stoltz was Marty. You would think by now I probably would have heard something if it had been a completely different Ghostbusters type of thing, but who knows? I don't know if they had some other kind of story beforehand. But
I love how his rock is just too hard for two different eras 30 years apart. Huey Lewis in the 80s is like, dude, you're just too darn loud. And then he goes back to the 50s, and of course he's too darn loud for the 50s. Like he's the hardest rockin' rocker in all of the USA.
What's funny is that he's playing this face-melting solo in the middle of Power of Love.
but
he's got these synths like and
he starts the song off with the solo.
The whole thing off. But the thing is about that though is he's playing quote his own music in 1985. In 1955, he's playing Chuck Berry, which is not too far away from where they are. So yeah, if he did that, you know, Power of Love nonsense like in 1955, that would have been that they would have kicked him off the stage.
Well, now I want to see a mashup. I want to see somebody take the footage from the dance and put the Power of Love performance to that, and then show like the 50s people reacting. Like,
why don't we just do that today?
All right, I'm gonna load her up.
Hey, did you guys ever try to skateboard behind a car?
Dude, I tried to skateboard 3 times and never again. That shit is not for me. I never got behind a car. I couldn't even go 2 blocks.
Yeah.
You didn't ever do it, Chris?
No, I've never skateboarded.
Have you not?
No.
Oh. I did I did it very slowly in a parking lot. And it was exhilarating. But then I fell on my ass.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was fun though.
It was never anything that was interesting to me. I had buddies who skateboarded, but I never got. It was not my interest at all. I've never been interested in any of that type of stuff. Skateboarding, skating.
The only reason I ever went to a skating rink was for girls, not for skating.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, I went to the old skate center in Brentwood a couple of times, but I wasn't very good at skating.
Yeah, no.
Just kind of like shuffle through.
Yeah, I mean, I got on the floor and was just like, you know.
I tell you what, Marty McFly was not. He wasn't a flashy skateboarder. Like he would go. He used it as a method of transport.
Practical skateboarder.
He was practical. You didn't see him like ollieing or axling or fucking doing anything off a roof or anything. He was just fucking. He wasn't kick flipping. He was just traveling.
You have now exhausted all the skateboarding terms that I know.
He also, it seemed like, because there's that moment where he's trying not to be seen by the truck, and he looks back, and he kind of gives the wave and stuff like that. Like, if you picked up a skateboarder on the back of your truck, would you have a problem with that? You'd just be like, all right, whatever. I mean, it's no skin off my sack, right?
I'd be afraid about litigation. Like,
yeah.
I don't want a lawsuit.
Worried about safety and stuff. That dude has I think a mellow yellow cap on. The dude that mellow yellow or Mountain Dew. I can't remember what it is.
I hope it's mellow yellow.
If it's 85, it's got to be mellow yellow.
I understand that Jonathan on the Behind the Sins podcast beat me to my hot take that mellow yellow is better than Mountain Dew. I guess he did it like 2 months ago. Yeah, pretty upset about it.
I'm surprised by that take, by the way.
I love Mellow Yellow. I like Mountain Dew. I just prefer Mellow Yellow.
The fuck?
A lot harder to find.
Is it hard to find?
Compared to Mountain Dew? Shit, yeah.
Mellow Yellow.
Because
Is
it's
that
not
a Coke?
popular.
Is that a Coke
it's
product?
a Coke product.
What's the difference? Is it sweeter? Is it like...
To me, it's the same difference as Coke and Pepsi. So Pepsi is a little sweeter. Coke is a little edgier. Mountain Dew is a little sweeter. Mellow Yellow is a little edgier. Got a little more bubble kick.
Little mouthfeel.
Yeah.
I think Mellow Yellow more, but then then Mountain Dew started ruling. I don't know why. Mellow Yellow. When I go back to Mellow Yellow, I'm just like, I don't know. This is not what I want anymore. So
this is not my type of guy. Wasn't Mellow Yellow the Cole Trickle, the Cole Diggle car?
Thunder,
Thunder?
yeah.
I don't
sure
follow cricket.
Yeah. I know.
You totally believe that there was a Cole Trickle out there right now racing, right?
Well, because there was a trickle. That's the thing. Is they didn't even try.
Wasn't there a Dick Trickle or something like that?
Yes, that's why when that movie comes out, it's a cheap-ass name. They didn't even try to come up with a clever sound-alike. They just literally used the same last name. Oh, there's already a trickle. Well, let's just use that.
Barrett, when you go back and listen to this, it's going to be literally me going, Dick Trickle, and then you going, is there a Dick Trickle?
Of course. Much like the "What Dreams May Come" joke that we didn't laugh at last week, which I feel bad about.
What's yours?
Mine, okay. So Chris has an analytical mind, and Jeremy has a brilliant mind, and you're both brilliant. But like I have a limited mind, and I can't wrap my brain around all the different types of time travel out there. Like if I watched Primer, which both of you have, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I watched Primer and even read the whole Wikipedia or whatever it is, the dissertation on it, I still probably would not be able to figure it out. There's just too much.
Wikipedia entry has a picture diagram of what happens when these people go into the time machine that they've made, and it makes it easier for you to understand what's going on.
Well, maybe I could. There's only a few. Now, I know when things don't make sense, like fucking Avengers Endgame. That doesn't make any sense to me. But it's hard for me to write. It's hard for me to think, in the words of Doc Brown, think fourth dimensionally. Like it's hard for me to figure out what would actually happen in those circumstances. So for that reason, I chose a more fantastical version of this time travel topic. Midnight in Paris. A movie that we've mentioned before, but we haven't really talked about much. This is, of the latter-day Woody Allen movies, one of the best. I think it was nominated for Best Picture
I think
at the time. It's weird because it's got Owen Wilson, and I appreciate Owen Wilson. He's got his own thing, right? But then anybody that's cast as a lead in a Woody Allen movie, Match Point notwithstanding, is called upon to do the Woody Allen impersonation. Kenneth Branagh did it. Jason Biggs. Jason Biggs did it.
I'm the pie fucker.
like Will Ferrell did it in Melinda and Melinda. But Owen Wilson, who plays this screenwriter turned novelist, plays it with his own certain charm. Yes, there is some dialogue in there where it seems very Woody Allen-ish, but what happens is he goes to Paris with his fiancée, played by Rachel McAdams. Yeah, Rachel McAdams, who is fucking around with him with Sheen, Michael Sheen, unbeknownst to Owen Wilson's character. And so he is a romantic. He falls in love with Paris. And again, it's very Owen Wilson-y. It's not very Woody Allen-y. Do you guys agree with this? Like, it's not an impression as much as it is an affectation?
It's not an impression, but it's the same type of character.
Yeah, exactly. He's a screenwriter that strives for something deeper, which is a different age. So as he's walking around Paris by himself, he runs into this carriage carrying a bunch of historical figures from, I think, the 1920s or around there. The Louis Buñuel and Ernest Hemingway and Gertrude Stein and Picasso and Salvador Dali and F. Scott Fitzgerald and stuff like that. And he's like, yes, this is my age. This is my time. This is the era that I want to be in. And then he gets returned to the present, where he's got to deal with his, of course, Woody Allen writes, wet blanket girlfriends all the time. And Rachel McAdams somehow becomes a wet blanket. Then he goes back and he keeps going back to this era, which he loves so much. He meets this woman, Marianne Cotillard, plays Adriana, who's a lover of everybody, basically. But she loves the Belle Epoque, the 1700s to 1800s in Paris. So they travel back to that period. And it's, ultimately a fable about living in the present rather than, pining for the past and the past eras and stuff like that. But the time travel aspect of this works narratively beautifully in this. You can tell all the bit players, Adrian Brody is Salvador Dali, who plays Buñuel, Adrian Devon, which is funny. There's one time, is it Godard or is it Buñuel, where Gil, Owen Wilson's character, tries to describe Louis Buñuel's movie, his eventual movie, to him. Mm-hmm. And he's like, no, that doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't because they're all surrealists and futurists and stuff like that. So yeah, it's an absolutely fabulous movie with a dynamic cast, and Owen Wilson is adorable in this. He adores Paris. He likes walking in the rain, and it's a love letter to that European city as Woody Allen was in that phase of his career at this point. Rome, Barcelona, London and Match Point. This is an absolute winner, and it's a cool time travel story.
There is a play called Picasso at the La Pénagile, written by Steve Martin, that is very similar to this.
Really?
Josh Childs, friend of the show, was in a production of this maybe 20 years ago, and that's when I saw it. But it's in like the early 1900s in Paris, and Picasso and Einstein meet in this cafe and have a debate about whether science or art is the greater genius. And then later, like fucking Elvis comes back in time and crashes the party to say sometimes genius is neither art nor science. It's an interesting play, but it's very similar kind of setting and historical figures together having these interesting. It reminds me of this new Regina King movie, One Night in Miami. What's it called? Miami.
Yeah. One Night in Miami. I know nothing about that. Is that similar to this?
No. Well, it's a fictional account of four greats: Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, Jeremy. Getting together and having a conversation one night when they all stayed in the same hotel.
Interesting.
So it's a similar concept, I guess, and sort of playing with historical figures in fictional conversations they might have had with each other. But I love One Night in Paris. One Night in Paris?
Midnight in Paris.
I do love One Night in Paris. I love Midnight in Paris too.
Photography was groundbreaking for the time. Paris Hilton's never been better.
The only time Paris Hilton and Woody Allen ever worked together.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, we talk a lot about Woody Allen movies, especially the early ones, but this is one of his best. I put this up there with Blue Jasmine, with Match Point, as the better latter day Woody Allen movies.
Yeah, I agree.
For sure.
I think it's great.
Do we want to continue giving examples of time travel, or do we want to move on to the next?
We need to move on.
Yeah, let's move on to the next one.
Okay, so the next one is
burning through it.
Global catastrophe section of this.
Yeah.
I stuck pretty close to the theme here and went with a pandemic type movie, and global illness has wiped out a lot of mankind movie. I'm going with my homeboy, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah. Which has a
Yeah.
lot to
My
do.
favorite.
12
Go ahead.
Monkeys in this movie are very close, like as far as what's actually happened and everything. And it even
Yeah.
had, lower primates in the whole thing. So
Yeah.
um,
The end of Rise of the Planet of the Apes, which is a great film. The credits do that great thing where you see the spread of the disease, and it's just an excellent tease. If that movie had been shit, we'd make fun of them for teasing a sequel that they were never going to get, but it was good. And then War comes at the end, and it's amalgamation of about 7 other films, and I like it. But Dawn in the Middle is my very favorite. Jason Clarke is good. Andy Serkis steals the show. The guy that plays Koba is outstanding. And it feels realistic as much as a talking ape pandemic snowy movie can feel realistic. The beats that it hits emotionally, I've talked about before, when they get the power up at the gas station and they start playing that Take a Load Off Annie song, and they start dancing because they haven't heard music
The Wait.
In forever. You would know the name of that song.
That's right.
It's called Take a Load Off Annie, Barrett.
That's called The Wait. The band.
I
The
love
band
that
The Wait.
moment. The Koba is a flushed out villain that you can sympathize with, unlike Woody Harrelson in the third movie, in my opinion. Human work. And he points at his scars.
They try really hard to make him like Koba by the end of it.
They do. They try too hard.
Are you saying Rise or Dawn is your pick here?
Dawn, right in the middle. That's the best
you.
of the trilogy.
I agree.
It is the end of Rise where there's you can get a lot of like 12 Monkeys kind of vibes.
Absolutely.
More than anything. But Dawn is the movie where the actual apocalypse has happened and everything at that point.
Yeah.
Is Gary Oldman in Dawn?
Yeah. He's the not really bad guy. Koba's the bad guy, but of course at the very end, Gary Oldman's like, let's blow up this tower that has innocent people on it. But up until then, he's just trying to protect the people for the most part.
Yeah, no, that's what I appreciate about that movie, is that no one, not even Koba or any of the apes, is necessarily bad or even good. Well, Caesar is unimpeachably good, basically, but like, no, there's no black and white. You can see why Koba does what he does.
Yep.
And you can see why Gary Oldman does what he does.
Yep.
You can see that Jason Clarke has this sort of, connection. I think he delivers more. It's a different type of performance than James Franco in the first movie. But in a nice empathetic type of performance. And it's a lot less ape-centric, obviously, than War. It does focus on the remaining humans. And you're right. Yeah, it's definitely, that's of all that trilogy, that's the one that I'm going back and watching much more often than anything else.
It's got that 360 tank shot that is one of my 10 favorite shots of all time. God, I can't wait to see this dude's Batman. I know people are sick of Batman, but I'm ready. Bring it on.
Matt Reeves did this in War. He didn't do the first one, right?
No, that was Rupert
Wyatt
Murdoch.
Rupert Wyatt.
Interesting. And then, so Reeves had done Cloverfield before then, right?
Yes.
But this was probably one of his first big budget things, right?
Yeah, I would think. I don't have his IMDb in front of me, but I think he went from Cloverfield to Dawn. And yeah, I'm ready to see what he does with Batman. I hope the rumors about him and Pattinson fighting are untrue.
I hope they fight. They should fight. The lead and the director should scrap a little bit.
Okay.
He also did he do one of the Kingsmen, or did he do both of the Kingsmen?
No, that was Matt. Different Matt. Matt Vaughn.
Oh, Matthew Vaughn. That's right. Okay.
The movie he did between Cloverfield and Dawn was Let Me In, the remake of Let Me In.
Yes,
that was really good. Yeah, it wasn't as good as the original. Yeah,
good.
Yeah. As for sci-fi apocalypse, global catastrophe, I went with God, I don't know what I want to go with. Since we're kind of going with one, I think. I was gonna say The Matrix, mainly because you can, there has been a global catastrophe. It's not a big thing though that you can see really in that movie, like because everything is in the Matrix, or you're underground or wherever you're at the time. But I'm gonna go with Mad Max: The Road Warrior, man. Everything after the original Mad Max, which is sort of, I think, I sort of think is a warning of what's possibly going to happen in the first Mad Max. But then in Road Warrior, it's all about, gasoline shortage and people are like just down to their last, gasoline is like really all natural resources in the Mad Max series is what it ends up coming down to. Gasoline, you have water in Fury Road. All these things that we sort of take for granted are like our currency in this world and everything. And, man, considering what's going on with like water right now, I'm just like, please let me just be off the planet when that happens. Because there's a shot that whole water as currency thing could happen in the next, I don't know, few decades or so. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say that out loud, but it seems like that's something that could happen. But yeah, the worlds shown by the Road Warrior and Beyond Thunderdome and Fury Road are all just our worlds that just we don't know what's made the devastation, but it's certainly something that feels realistic enough that that these type of things, that people would be forced to go off and build their own communities again, and there wouldn't be any big cities anymore, and there was only a few people in power who were all fascists pretty much at this point. In Beyond Thunderdome, they may have actually said what happened. Like it might have been an atomic bomb, because there's a story that is told with the kids in Beyond Thunderdome. It may be an atomic bomb or an airplane, something like that. I can't remember what it was. But they do discuss what causes it, I believe, in Beyond Thunderdome. But anyway, that's the type of world. We haven't quite got there in 12 Monkeys yet, although 12 Monkeys doesn't really show its future very often. It shows a world where things are kind of like everybody's inside and we don't know what the outside world really looks like in 12 Monkeys. So it could be a Mad Max out there.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that underground, like all the prisons and all that stuff? It's in some sort of cave system or something like that?
Something like that. Although it looks like they still have access to really advanced technologies and power and all this type of stuff. But just maybe the problem is not so much resources, but just the fact that they can't get above ground because that virus is so deadly. So I don't know. We don't get to see that. But that's kind of interesting to think about. And now that we were talking about 12 Monkeys, they don't really show that future world too often.
Right.
What's really the deal going on? We just know that the virus is horrible and that's why they're where they're at. So
it's been forever since I've seen Road Warrior. Mel Gibson still has his Aussie accent in both of all three of them, the first ones?
I mean, yeah.
He's definitely got in the first one.
Even the first one, it's there, but it's not like pronounced, I don't think.
I see.
He's not quite to Lethal Weapon Mel Gibson yet, obviously, but it's, I don't know. I don't think he's either never had a really strong Australian accent, or he toned it down even then when the first Mad Max came out. So, and
this was were all three of them George Miller?
Mm-hmm.
Well, all four of them, I guess.
Yeah.
It's funny because I'm watching Happy Feet and Happy Feet 2, which is also George Miller.
yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck, dude.
Babe,
You created Emerton Joe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that guy was in the first one. The guy who played Joe in Fury Road was in the first one. He's one of the. I think he's one of the.
Is he really?
In the first one, yeah. But he dies at the end of the first one, so I don't know if it's supposed to be the same character or what. But that guy is in both of them.
You know they're going to make a Furiosa movie, and they've cast Anya Taylor-Joy.
Oh, really?
As Furiosa?
Hang on. And Chris Hemsworth and Yahya Abdul-Mateen II.
Oh, that guy was in the Trial of the Chicago 7. That guy's awesome.
He's everywhere. He was in Watchmen, and now he's everywhere. He's in the fourth Matrix movie. He was in Trial of Chicago 7. He's everywhere, and I like him, so it's good.
He plays Regina King's husband in Watchmen, right?
Yes.
This was supposed to be the movie that Charlize Theron was going to be in, and then they shelved it for whatever reason, and then now they've and Anya Taylor-Joy is a perfect choice.
Oh yeah, she'll do great. And there are even some. Looks like there's rumors that Charlize may somehow appear somehow in the movie.
So, well, I mean, it would be very much Mad Maxy to do that because Tom Hardy played Mad Max in Fury Road, and Mel Gibson played it before. So it can always be like James Bond, right? It doesn't matter, like there's this different actors playing the same code name or whatever.
Why not?
Well, for a sci-fi global catastrophe, for me, I just actually caught this again recently. It's been a while. The 1978 version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Ooh, with Donnie Sutherland?
Yes, and Jeff Goldblum and Spock. And this story has been made many, many times. Most recently, I think, is the Nicole Kidman, Daniel Craig Invasion, which was hot fucking garbage that you urinate on. But this one is the definitive version because it's an allegory, of course, of assimilation and stuff like that. But it's also so fucking freaky. And I'll tell you why it's freaky. It starts with such mundane, everyday shit. Like Donald Sutherland is a health inspector. And so he's working in his health. He's not like a super spy. He's not an FBI agent or anything like that. He's a fucking health inspector in San Francisco. He's got a buddy, Leonard Nimoy, that's a psychiatrist. He's got another buddy who's dating a friend that Jeff Goldblum. And it just goes around San Francisco, not with the showy, big pyramid building or like Chinatown and stuff like that. Just regular ass San Francisco. And just seeing all this freaky shit happen in the most mundane circumstances. Somebody, you can see the shades of this in Jordan Peele's Us. Like somebody is acting one way one day, and then the next day they're acting completely different. Somebody else who's tangentially related, who's on their side, acts one way, and then they act differently the next day. The really cool part about this is the Leonard Nimoy character, and it's an old movie, so I can spoil a little bit of it. The Leonard Nimoy character turns into a pod person midway through, but his behavior doesn't change so much that it gives it away, that you're like, oh, he's a pod person. It changes to where like you can see his motivation is a little bit sketchy, but he ain't all the way bad. And so when it is revealed that he is a pod person, it's a smack in the face. And then of course the final scene.
Oh, where he yells, "Soylent Green is people."
That's exactly. It's very weird. And then he says, "God damn you all to hell," which is even crazier. But no, that final scene will give you nightmares for sure. The cast is great in this. It holds up, trust me. Yeah, of course, there's 70s fashion and stuff like that, but it holds up just as well today as it did in 1978. You should watch this movie, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Don't watch Daniel Craig and Nicole Kidman trip over themselves trying to get away from.
There's one in the 90s too, right?
Yeah, one in the 90s that's really good. That's worth watching. It's not the best. It's not better than the original, but
I saw that one. Who's in that one?
That's the. It's got Meg Tilly and it's got Gabrielle Anwar.
Oh, the 93 version? Yeah.
the Abel Ferreira.
Arlie Ermy.
Yeah, Arlie Ermy. Although it's got a 6.0 on the IMDb, so not everybody likes it, but I thought it was good.
Interesting. I'm gonna try that.
Yeah. But yeah, it ain't that original version or that.
Oh, it's so good. God, I mean, I watched it. It came on. I was like, I've seen this before, but like it just immediately hooks you in. And I tell you what, man, Donald Sutherland is a charismatic ass leading man, and people forget that because he's funny looking, and he's
old. Simmons is old.
A kid named Kiefer, but like, but he was charming, man.
No, I'm saying the original, but there's a 1956 version of that movie.
Yeah,
too.
fuck that version.
One that you're talking about, yeah, Donnie S. In that and everything. Yeah, Simmons is old.
Simmons is old.
All right, everybody, it's time to talk about BetterHelp.
BetterHelp. I tell you what, BetterHelp. We love it. We love it. You've heard it before. We also have a BetterHelp spot on one of our videos that we released as we record today on the Mulan video. So go check that out too. BetterHelp is online counseling that is available from the comfort of your own home. You get matched with licensed counselors, and it could not be easier. And I'll give you an example of a conversation that I had with my counselor this week. While we were doing our therapy, we were talking about a specific mindfulness thing, and boom, I heard this ding dong, and she had shot me that diagram of what we were talking about in an instant message outside of the chat that we were having. So the platform itself is conducive to not only just like sitting there and talking to somebody and looking at them or chatting, via text or something like that. Like it's very interactive. You schedule in your counseling room. You exchange documents in your counseling room. You set up your chats and your things like that in your counseling room. It's so convenient. You could do it with all different devices. BetterHelp has really changed my life, and I think it's changing a lot of people's life.
There is a piece of advice I want to give, and that is to take notes. Not during therapy, because that's disrespectful to the process and your therapist. But a good therapist, the good ones I've had, takes notes. And when I see them the next time, they bring up things we talked about before. And how are you doing on this? And how is this going? And that's very helpful for them to be able to be my therapist. But it's equally helpful for me as the patient to, when I'm done with a therapy session, either, and I've done it both ways, either typing in like a journal, writing if you prefer to do analog, or even like they make these mini digital recorders now that are super cheap. You can just kind of record some thoughts.
Or just use your phone, like do a voice memo.
Yeah. And then, go back to that at least once before your next session. You'd be surprised, like shocked how much it helps both kickstart that next therapy session, but also keep you on the right path. So
absolutely, because there'll be times where you'll leave a thread. I mean, there's only so much time in your session, and you'll be like, I've just started to unpeel this layer, and you're like, okay, well, we got to move on. And then a week later, you're like, oh, well, how was your week? And then you start talking about your week, and then you get off on another subject. But absolutely, Jeremy's completely right. If you can say, hey, by the way, I was thinking about that thing that we were talking about last week, then you've got a starting off point, and it's like unpausing a video game. You can get right back into it instead of starting it from the very beginning.
It's also basic, like learning, like techniques, right? In school, when you're a kid, the teacher doesn't lecture you for an hour. The teacher says some stuff and then has you read the same shit out of the book and then has you write that same shit on a piece of paper because it's repetition. It stays in your mind. It sticks there. And so writing down and then rereading what you remember from your therapy session is really educational for your own process.
Absolutely. Listen, go to betterhelp.com/SinCast. For a special deal, you get 10% off your first month. Use that month very, very wisely. That is critical because that's where you get matched with your counselor. That's where you really establish the rapport. You can change counselors, by the way. If you're not feeling it, if you're not feeling like things are progressing well after a while, You can do that with no judgment, no problems, anything like that. That first month is really a launching pad. Make of it what you will, but go in with a purpose. Don't just be like, all right, fix me, because that's not how this works. So go to betterhelp.com/SinCast, get the special deal, get matched, answer a few questions, get matched with the counselor, and you're off and running. And let me tell you, obviously this is a difficult time for a lot of people, especially as we are in the thick of winter. A lot of people have seasonal affective issues, whether it's depression or anxiety or anything like that, even in the best of times. And this is not necessarily the best of times. So go to betterhelp.com/SinCast today and thank us later. It's a great service. We love it. We use it. Go.
And then the final element of 12 Monkeys is psychiatric hospitals. If you come from the future and you start telling people that you're from the future, there's not really any way to prove that, is there? But one thing that's good about Bruce Willis's plight in this, that sort of gets Madeline Stowe on his side, is that he shows up in a photograph from World War I or II. I can't remember which one. So she isn't able to explain that. And that's where she starts going down her in her journey of being, well, I don't know if this is real or not, but I think I believe this crazy ass story. And what does that mean? Because I'm a psychiatrist. I'm a well-known author. What does that mean for me and everything? So
am I crazy, or is there a bullet in his leg too that supported that story?
Bullet. Yeah. Bullet. When they took him in, they took out the bullet from World War One. Right. Because the guy is like, it's like the bullet we took out is an antique. And so there's that one asshole guy that's in this movie that's like really like, what is it? What's up with this Bruce Willis fuckhead? Like there's gotta be there. There's always gotta be one of those people. The bullet, but she also, I think it's the bullet, and then she goes and finds the photograph after.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But psychiatric hospitals.
I'm just gonna kick it off with Terminator 2, because I've always been fascinated by this. Granted that the main psychiatrist guy is an asshole who's like aggressively mean to her, and I don't know that that's necessary, because I think a normal, morally good psychiatrist who had a patient saying a robot came back from the future to kill me, and a man came back from the future to save me, you would definitely not believe that woman, and you would do everything in your power to convince her that she's having delusions. Mm-hmm. But because we know it's true, it feels like they're gaslighting her. Because we saw the robot, we know this is all true. But in a normal psychiatric hospital, she would be a long-term patient. Because we just don't process these things as being real, and it has to be a symptom of some kind of an illness. And again, I think that doctor shows up in Rise of the Machines at the cemetery, and I think they very flippantly either kill him or injure him. But I never understood why they felt the need to make that guy such an ogre, since you could make him a good doctor and he would still feel like a villain or a hurdle in her way, because we know the truth.
Well, and in the first movie, he sees something that is not natural.
That's right.
All. Yeah. And the problem for him as a supposed man of science is that there has to be an explanation that does not involve time travel. Right. So even though he has seen proof and everything, and by T2 though, he should know that there's robots coming back, because that's when that liquid metal shit happens right in front of his eyes. But yeah, in the first one, he sees some things that it's not natural at all. So, there's no real explanation for it, but because he's a man of science, he's willing to be able to just say, okay, well, that's just something I can't explain. And I'll continue treating her like she is crazy about this. So,
and Sarah's in the hospital for the first, 15, 20 minutes of the movie or so.
Oh, more than that. Like
is
almost 45 minutes or so before they even get to her. I mean, she's in a couple scenes, but there's so much more than you remember of Arnold and Robert Patrick and that fucking snotty kid being a snotty kid.
And playing video games.
Chasing him through the mall and the LA River. And then finally they get to her. It's probably a third of the way through the movie.
Wow.
Pretty far in by the time they start off with her on tape talking about, what the apocalypse is going to look like. And, she reviews the tape and says, well, I'm much better now. I don't think that anymore and all that. And the doctor, to his credit, is like, I think you just tell me what you want me to hear, which that's how do you get convinced at that point? That's the tough thing. But yeah, it takes a good long time before they break her out, because there's a lot of stuff before Eddie Furlong is like, let's go get my mom. We got to get my mom out of the psychiatrist hospital. So I don't know which one I want to do here. I think I'm gonna go with Shutter Island.
Ooh, awesome.
I was thinking about Batman and the Arkham Asylum stuff, but we don't see a lot of Arkham Asylum. We only see, when somebody is gone there and they're locked up or whatever. Gotham, by the way, need to have some I don't know, they need to change their policies on what they consider insane or whatever, because some of these guys, it's like, well, he must be insane because he dresses up in a costume and he speaks in riddles, and it's like you just go to jail. I mean, isn't in one of the criteria, like, that they understand what's happening and all that? And most of these people do understand what's going on and why they're being charged and everything, but they always send them to the Arkham Asylum in Batman. But
that's true. You got a costume on, you're going to Arkham.
Oh yeah, man, you're fucked. Shutter Island has DiCaprio, and where he's trying to solve this mystery, and spoiler alert, the doctors are allowing him to do this. He's trying to solve this mystery, and he's being allowed to go around all of Shutter Island to uncover the clues and everything. Everything he runs into is sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy type of thing for him. Like everything that every time he runs into a dead end of some sort that would tell him, hey, there's not anything going on at this hospital, something else pops up. Either he creates it in his own mind or something. He invents these things, as like there's a point where he invents entire people basically in this fantasy. Who is it that he meets? And is it Patricia Clarkson he runs into
yes.
like wandering around on Shutter Island? And Patricia Clarkson, I used to work there and I know of a lot of things that used to have, they're trying to hide the truth from you and everything. Of course, the entire visit didn't ever happen. And it's basically, I mean, it's how he copes with the loss of his wife and kids. It's that I don't know if there is a darker image in a movie in a long time than Michelle Williams in that movie, like taking her kids out to the water and everything. And then he comes home and like everything's like, normal day, blah, blah, blah. I'm back home from work. And then he comes out and just like, she's just sitting there at the edge of the pond or whatever. And his kids are dead, man. It's like, it's so, I mean, of course somebody's going to go through, a traumatic, I don't know what you want to call it, but they're going to want to try to escape to somewhere else when they see something that horrible. I mean, not everybody in the world, but some people would. Yeah, Shutter Island, he's convinced that there's something crazy going on that they're hiding, and he doesn't realize that it's all a fantasy. he's covering up for a bad memory, a very, very bad memory. And the ending of this movie is one of the, it's so devastating.
The end?
Yes.
Oh yeah. That'll punch you in the dick.
He has finally accepted it. And then he pretends not to, so that oh my God. Oh my God. And of course it's Dennis Lehane, who's like the guy who zaps the soul out of everybody.
He does.
There was
a time where I went on a site visit in former life to Ward's Island. There's a psychiatric hospital there off the coast of Manhattan called the Manhattan Psychiatric Center. And it's got 3 buildings there. One is the research wing, one is the long-term holding, and then one is the criminally insane. So I was working right next to the Arkham Asylum of New York, and it's on an island. There's nothing on this island. There may be now. It was 20 or 10 years ago, I guess. And there was nothing on this island except for these 3 buildings. And it took forever to get there, and it gave me very strong Shutter Island vibes. And I was like, oh, shit.
Jesus.
I'm going to stay here for the rest of my life.
It's one of the most underrated DiCaprio performances, but one of the things about it, about that ending that really gets you is not just the fact that, he's finally accepted it. Apparently he's almost been there a couple of times where he's begun to accept that his kids are dead, but then he just keeps going back into this fantasy. This time he's out of it. He's out of it completely. They've done the job and everything. But then he goes and starts talking to Mark Ruffalo, and he starts telling him, like, we're going to do this. We're going to escape. We're going to blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh shit. I guess he just went right back into it. But when the people in the white lab coats show up, you can just see the expression on DiCaprio's face that shows that he knows this is it. This is over. And this is what he's been doing the whole time. Like what he's been doing, what he's doing now to basically he's given up at this point.
But he's essentially volunteering to have that part of his memory excised, right? Like he's saying, I would rather go ahead and get this lobotomy than live with the pain that I've just accepted.
Yeah.
That'll kick you right in the nads.
Yeah.
I tell you what, you mentioned Ruffalo. Ruffalo's excellent in this fucking movie.
Yeah.
He's so subservient. Like he always calls DiCaprio boss, right? He's like, where you want to go, boss? Yeah. And then when you get the reveal, you're like, oh my God, like this guy has to have so much compassion and so much like and acting ability essentially, right? And he's got to play along with all of these delusions. That's a great movie. I love that movie.
I don't know how. I mean, obviously that's not close to what 12 Monkeys is doing. 12 Monkeys is the guy actually has the truth on his side, but it's hard to explain what it is. In this case, he doesn't have the truth on his side, but he's adamant. And of course, because he's DiCaprio, and that's the trick of movies, right? Because it's DiCaprio, you assume that he is right as well.
You're going to believe him.
And of course you also don't, although I guessed it in the first 5 minutes, unfortunately. You're not supposed to know that he's a patient on the island, but that's one of those. That's it. I mean, I guess it's the polar opposite of 12 Monkeys in some ways. So,
I tell you what a good movie for dealing with psychiatric illness is The Perks of Being a Wallflower. I don't know if this movie is underrated or overrated or properly rated. It seemed like it was briefly exaggerated and then it was underrated. Like it seemed like people made fun of it a little bit. Maybe it was Logan Lerman or whatever it was. But man, this movie hits it spot on. It takes place mostly in high school. Logan Lerman playing the main character, Charlie. But it happens right after he gets out of a psychiatric hospital for severe depression. And he's got to not only reintegrate, think about your freshman year in high school. Like, you're going from 8th grade, you got a summer break, and you're going into high school. Sometimes it's a different one, sometimes it's the same. Imagine coming out of a psychiatric hospital and then thrust into high school in your freshman year, not knowing anybody in a new place. And that's where you find this guy set. And he befriends maybe the most adorable performance from Emma Watson, great performance from Ezra Miller as his two best friends. Ezra Miller is super gay. He is, and what's interesting, so he's super gay with one of his partners is the high school quarterback, played by young Neil from Scott Pilgrim, Johnny Simmons. And his sister, I believe, or no, the girl that Logan Lerman ends up dating is Mae Whitman, who was also in Scott Pilgrim versus the World as as one of the evil exes. I found that interesting. Nobody else. What happens is, he goes through these panic attacks too, where he gets super violent, and he ends up going back to the psychiatric hospital, and it comes out of seemingly nowhere. And then when you find out the whole backstory, have both of you guys seen this movie?
Nope.
I have.
Of course you have. When you get the whole backstory, which involves the death of his beloved aunt, played by Melanie Linsky, it'll get you, man. It'll get you in different ways that you even think of it. And then when you finally get the final shot of Sam, I think is her name, Emma Watson and Logan Lerman in the back of the truck driving through with David Bowie's Heroes playing. It is exuberant, but shit ain't totally right. And so it's just a fascinating movie. The treatment that he gets is inadequate for his condition because I don't think they know what his condition is. So that's the interesting part from a practitioner point of view, is that you can tell even the medication, even the therapy that he's getting ain't going to break through until they figure out what's really going on with this guy. And he plays it perfectly. Ezra Miller is great. And Emma Watson is fantastic. Honestly, besides the Harry Potter stuff, which she's excellent in, this is my favorite performance that she's done.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know anything that would come close besides The Circle.
I mean, yeah, and she was also in The Bling Ring, which this is her. I think this is her best post Harry Potter.
Yeah.
At least movie, if not performance. So yeah. Logan Lerman gets to have a really awesome scene later on when he's protecting Ezra Miller.
Yeah.
That's a really, really good. That's a really good scene because it comes out of nowhere. You're not. Logan Lerman seems like any other kind of guy that's going to get bullied in this movie. And not only is it a satisfying defense of Ezra Miller, but the line he says is great as well.
Yep. Yeah, it's good stuff, man. Good performance. Paul Rudd's in this.
Mm-hmm.
Dylan McDermott.
Dermy.
Joan Cusack is in this. There's a lot of really, really good performance. This is, I think, almost underrated at this point. So you should totally watch it. I love it. it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was a little fun exercise to work around 12 Monkeys and everything. Got to talk about some other movies here and there. I mean, some that we've talked about before, but I guess unfortunately, when we do stuff like that, I don't know, it's not unfortunate, but like whenever you talk about time travel and you talk about waste, apocalyptic wastelands, you kind of go over some of the same territory and everything. But all in all, I think there was some different ones in there that we picked for these topics and everything that we don't get a chance to talk about very often.
25 years ago today. Yeah, I saw that at Nipper's Corner. Jeremy, did you see this in the theater, 12 Monkeys?
Absolutely.
Did you have it? Were you working at movie theaters at that point?
No, I might have been working. Well, what was the year?
96.
I was working at a movie theater, but I'm pretty sure I saw this on a vacation here in Nashville.
So we may all have seen it in Nashville.
I didn't see it. I think I saw it at the Harding Mall.
Oh, wow.
Which doesn't exist anymore. You remember what time of year it came out, Chris? Was it winter time?
It was January 5th.
It was
Yeah,
January,
so
late December, I guess, in New York and Los Angeles, and then January everywhere else. So
yeah, I feel like I remember snow in the Harding Mall. I'm not sure why I would have been in Nashville in January, except for a long Christmas break, maybe. But
yeah, there's also a possibility that it had a wide quote unquote release January 5th, and that was in a lot of other big cities, and then Nashville got it, January 26th or something like that. There used to be movies back in the 90s where you're like, why the fuck haven't we gotten this movie? Like, everybody knows about the movie. It's not like there you need to build up any word of mouth at this point. Every fucking asshole is talking about this movie. So let's go ahead and get it out already. All right, so we want to do some recommends and warns?
Yes.
Totes amazeballs.
They're great.
It won the Academy Award.
Oh, for what?
For best movie ever made.
I'll go ahead and start on this one. I'm going to recommend an Argentinian film, one best foreign language film in 2009, The Secret in Their Eyes.
I've heard of this.
This movie was remade 6 years later with Chiwetel Ejiofor and Nicole Kidman and Julia Roberts. I have not seen that one. I've heard.
Is it named the same?
It's the same title. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
This is sort of a back and forth flashback type of movie. It starts in 1974, and then I think it's 1999 or something like that, where the main character is writing a book about his experiences with this rape and murder that happened back in the day that he was sort of investigating as I think he was a part of a lawyer team or something. I don't know what he was, whatever, but the husband of this woman who was raped and murdered, obviously wants to know what the truth is. And this guy, along with his buddy, try to figure out who would be the suspect that the cops aren't looking at and everything, and see if they could possibly come up with a possible answer for this. And they start scanning photographs of this woman's past and everything, and they start sort of playing some armchair psychologist type of thing, and they're like, this guy's kind of looking at her creepily in the photo, and this is like back in college. And then they start asking around about him, and sure enough, this guy did have feelings for this woman back in the day, and they're trying to figure out if there's any way possible he somehow found her again after a few years and he committed this crime. But this movie's going back and forth between this guy who's writing his book and a woman who was his boss, and there's this natural chemistry that was between them, but he was always too afraid to ask her out because she said she had a boyfriend and everything. But it's clear when they're talking that she wants him to ask her out, like every single time they talk, it seems like, but he never pulls the trigger and everything. So part of the story is not only the fact that he's looking for this killer, but it's also this love story that may or may not happen and everything. So they do find this guy, and they think that maybe he's the one who did it and everything. But what happens is this guy that they think did it, is like basically a lot of strings are pulled for him to get out of prison and work for this other political figure, in Argentina. And it's a guy who hates this dude who's been, doing the investigation. He hates him because of something that he did to him a couple of years prior or whatever. And so that guy ends up basically going scot-free. And meanwhile, there's this husband who has been sitting there going, I want this guy to be punished somehow, some way. And this dude that they think did it disappears, but they don't know what happened to him. So a lot of the story is about whether or not this husband may have killed him, or if this dude ended up just disappearing coincidentally or whatever. It's got a tremendous ending to it. Great performances, good mystery, well acted. It is an absolute slam dunk recommend movie. Secret in Their Eyes is awesome.
Wow.
What was the impetus of you watching the original versus the remake, or just watching it at all?
Well, there's still that movie club thing that's going on right now. We don't think we even call it movie club. I call it that so that it's that it's easier to discuss. But there's me and three other guys. We rotate picking 2 movies to watch on a given weekend. And this guy picked 2 Argentinian films.
Oh, okay.
Both of them were very, very highly rated, actually. And we watched that, and we watched another one. If we get around to another recommend, I'll recommend the one that we watched after that. But The Secret in Their Eyes is really good, and I can't do it justice. It's that kind of a complex type of story, murder mystery, goes back and forth between 2 eras. And everything, but it is absolutely, you will not be disappointed in watching this movie. It's absolutely fantastic.
All right. What do you got, Jeremy?
That was high praise. Well, are we going to do recommends and warns, or just one round?
No, let's do both, because I feel strongly about both.
Then I want to recommend 2 documentaries that I saw recently. One is called Emmanuel, about the shooting in Charleston at the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in 2015. Dylan Roof is the shooter. Yeah. And the other documentary is Kingdom of Silence, which is about Jamal Khashoggi.
Yeah.
Yep.
The journalist who was killed. I just paused because I'm mildly afraid to say on a podcast who killed him. How fucking crazy is this world?
Yeah, right.
Anyway,
say
I've heard people.
Who does the documentary say kills him?
The documentary pretty clearly says that it was the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia that ordered the killing. And I think that's what the world has generally assumed.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting watching the documentary is how much the Trump administration just didn't care, like photo ops with the dude and whatnot afterwards. I've heard people dismiss Jamal Khashoggi as a journalist because they'll say he wrote some opinion pieces for the Washington Post, but this documentary lays out that he was a journalist his entire life in the Middle East. He was a foreign reporter who went to countries all around the Middle East. He interviewed Osama bin Laden a few times back in the 90s. Was both professionally friendly and friendly with members of the royal family, just not the current crown prince as much. And the crown prince started to sort of cement his own position of power. That's when Khashoggi left and came to America and started writing about some of the dangers of that sort of government and the situations there. And it ultimately got him killed. But it was eye-opening for me to learn more about the man and hear interviews from people who knew him, his friends, because until watching this documentary, he was a face and a name that I saw on the news, but I didn't feel like I knew the person at all. Mm-hmm. The documentary does a really good job of helping you get to know the person. And then the other documentary, Emmanuel, surprised me in terms of both its path, and it's not really about the shooter at all. I mean, there are obviously he's mentioned and whatnot, but what this is about is it lays out how important this church was to the community and the history, not only the community leaders that were part of this church, but the race relations in the history of this community. And this church was a pillar for the Black community and for harmony. The fact that this was the church that he chose, is it's interesting, I guess. It's worth exploring. But what the documentary then shifts to is how quickly all of the survivors from that Bible study and the family members of the victims and other members of the church, within 48 hours, was standing in court looking at Dylan Roof and collectively forgiving him. And that is what the documentary focuses on. It gets a little more religious than I would probably prefer personally, but not so much that I think would offend a non-religious person. And certainly the church and its meaning was at the center of this whole event. So you can't not mention the religion and the ties there. But the message of forgiveness, it's weird. As I'm watching the documentary, I thought, well, you don't feel that. You're angry. You're just saying that because you know it's the right thing to do. And as I finish watching it, I'm like, oh, wow, that's even more powerful. that you would, within 48 hours, you have to still be angry. And to be able to shove that down and say, I'll get over that. The thing that I'm going to do forever is forgive you. Is fascinating. I thought it was. Very few documentaries I've seen about crimes or anything like this have focused on a forgiving victim or collection of survivors. And it's got 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. So those two documentaries, really enjoyed. That's my recommend for the week.
Where'd you find these?
I'm flipping channels. The Emmanuel is on Hulu, even though I found it on, I think, Stars. And I think the Jamal Khashoggi one, Kingdom of Silence, is an HBO film.
Kingdom of Silence is what it's called?
Yeah, Kingdom of Silence, and it is, well, it doesn't say. Showtime. Showtime original.
All right. Yeah, I was very, very interested in the Jamal Khashoggi case because that is international diplomacy and a brazen attack on free speech and press. And the guy was universally beloved by his colleagues, from what I understand. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was spun so despicably by certain factions as, yeah, he had written some opinion pieces that were critical of a certain faction of everything. And otherwise, yeah, he was an intrepid reporter that had a pretty impeccable record from what I understand.
Known for being able to balance all these factions and being trusted as an integrity guy by all these different factions that, ultimately ended up turning on him. It's a fascinating story. It's really tragic, but he was a really neat guy.
And the fact that it happened at the fucking embassy.
Yeah.
The embassy.
Yeah.
This is sanctuary. This is supposed to be – the whole thing was one of the most brazen, despicable things I've seen in my lifetime, I think, because everybody knew it. Everybody knew it. This is something that you don't do. You don't target journalists. You don't target healthcare workers. You don't target relief workers. And this was just a complete fuck you to all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to watch that for sure. Do you want a hard warn or a hard recommend?
Yes.
Yeah? Yeah.
I'm going to give me a hard warn because we don't have one of those yet.
I'm going to give you a hard warn. I love me. We were talking about post-apocalyptic movies earlier. I love that shit. Love it.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Mm-hmm.
Love the end of the world. Love watching it. You know who else I love? George Clooney.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
You know what else I love is some space drama.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I get rock hard for this movie, The Midnight Sky, that came out on
Miley
Netflix.
song.
Dude, every time I think about this movie, that song pops in my head. I actually love that song too. It took me a while to come around to it, but I fucking love that song now. I was born to run. I'm not controlled by anyone. Anyway. But so Midnight Sky is turgid. I was ready. I was ready to go. And starts off all right. It was a bunch of people evacuating the planet from a tundra type of thing. And then you see Clooney with a very David Letterman beard He looks from the side and the back. He looks exactly like Letterman looks right now.
Awesome.
Closely cropped hair and then the giant beard. But then when you go up close, you're like, oh, that guy's handsome. That looks like George Clooney. So they evacuate the planet, and early on, you find out that Clooney's character has terminal cancer, and he's evacuating the planet, but he's going to stay behind to monitor things, to let people know what's going on Earth. Okay. Interesting premise, right? They found this habitable environment on one of Jupiter's, quote, hidden moons. Does Jupiter have any hidden moons, you ask? Who cares? That's what the movie says to you. And the movie says that a lot to you. So they go to this. Okay. So he's there. And then you start this bifurcated path of him on the planet eating the only person on the planet. What happened to the planet? I don't know, says the movie. Fuck you for even asking, says the movie. Then you go to the spaceship. There's a spaceship that went all the way to this Jupiter moon that was hidden, and now it's on the way back. It's got a crew of like 5 people, including Kyle Chandler, including David. Chris, can you help me out on the pronunciation? It's David Oyelowo. Oyelowo?
Yeah, it's O, yellow, and O.
Okay.
Yellow.
David Oyelowo. God damn it. I'm sorry.
It's up. I agree.
So him, Felicity Jones, Rogue One herself, Damian Bashir, Kyle Chandler, and the other girl, Tiffany Boone. And so they're on their way back from this Jupiter mission. Only takes 2 years to get to Jupiter, by the way. I don't know how that happens.
Sweet.
But they're on their way back. Guess what? Felicity Jones is knocked up. What happens in space, you ask? They fuck in space. That's what happens. So she's knocked up by David Oyelowo. And I'll just call him Delawo. God damn it. The whole thing. Anyway, by the commander. And so they're traveling back. Clooney's job at his Arctic base is to warn the one remaining spaceship, by the way. What happened to the other spaceships? We don't know, says the movie. To warn that spaceship to not come back to Earth because Earth is hot garbage. We don't know why Earth is hot garbage, but it's hot garbage. And so Clooney runs into, all of a sudden, a girl. There's a girl at a space base, or not a space base, his Arctic base. And she's been left behind, and he's freaking out. And they have to go get a stronger satellite so they can warn the Ether, which is piloted by Felicity Jones and her boo. And then they have to go out and spacewalk because there's some shit wrong. And then it turns into fucking gravity. I swear to fucking Christ. It turns into fucking gravity with space debris coming at them and shit going down and stuff like that.
When he was
mad he died. He wanted to come back for Anatolia's vodka. But I swear to God. Oh, and the worst thing about this movie's fucking awful. If you haven't found out already, the worst thing about this movie is that they flash back to Clooney's past, and they show him getting together with this lady friend. But it's not Clooney. It's not D.H. Clooney. It's Gregory Peck's grandson, Ethan Peck. All right? Who looks nothing like George Clooney. But you know what they did? They decided to dub in Clooney's voice when he's talking. So there's this mix of Ethan Peck and George Clooney. So he sounds like George Clooney. And I swear to fucking Christ, I went into this movie wanting to love it. And it's just, it's so many different, I just wanted to finish. I want to rattle off the top of my head, didn't look anything up, off the top of my head, every movie that it's derivative of. Okay? So, like, all of a sudden, I was just like, hold on one second. This is exactly like Aliens, Passengers, The Martian, Call of the Wild, 2012, Bird Box, Arctic, Paradox, The Cloverfield Paradox, The Road, The Gray, Gravity, Armageddon, Sphere, The Core, Breaking Bad, Logan, World War Z, and Interstellar. All together. Yeah, it doesn't work, does it? It fucking sucks.
Yep.
That
doesn't sound like a very good movie.
Look, I don't know, man. And Clooney, the actor, is fine in this. Clooney, the actor, has all of his charm and charisma. The little girl that plays the one that's left behind is perfectly fine. The performances overall are not bad. It's just the structure of the story. It's so way too much. We were having this discussion privately about Clooney just not being a good director. And I think Clooney, the director, definitely got in the way of Clooney, the actor in this, because he bit off way more than he could chew. We went back in like Leatherheads and Monuments Men, and those were all misfires. Before that, Good Night and Good Luck was decent. The Chuck Barris story, the Men Who Stare at Chuck Barris. What is it?
Confessions of a Dangerous Mind.
Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. I enjoy quite a bit. But man, I just wish he would stick to acting and performing. And there may be a good movie in here, but it ain't what you get. It's bad. It's bad. Yeah,
disappointing.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
Yeah. When you see something with the Clooney in it, and it's got you should be at least borderline. It should be like a average movie, right? It should be.
I agree.
You don't really see horrible George Clooney movies.
You don't, and that's why, like, all of those elements. I'm not kidding around when I was like, because yes, I saw the general review scores, but I didn't get into it. Didn't figure out what was going on plot wise. Didn't read any reviews, but I saw it was not getting good reviews, and I was like, come on, how bad could it be? And it's worse.
Yep. So yeah, I'll recommend the other movie from Argentina that we saw. It's called Wild Tales, which is
ooh, yeah, I've seen that.
You've seen Wild Tales?
No, but I've seen.
You've been in Wild Tales.
That's a strip.
They were bucking all around.
Yeah, exactly. This is it's an anthology film. It's got six different stories in it. Nearly all of them are good. There's one in there that I didn't really like, but the very beginning one gets you right into this movie. It's so good. This woman sits down on an airplane, and she starts, and a guy across the aisle starts talking to her, and then she mentions that, well, she used to date this guy, and he was a pianist, and things didn't work out well for him, and so she left him and everything because he became like a terrible person. I don't know what it is, but anyway. Mentions his name, and the guy across the aisleway is like, did you say this guy? Oh yeah, I know who you're talking about. I remember him playing a piece for us, and then it turns out that this guy's a critic, and he did not like the piece that this guy played. And it was, and he goes on about, oh man, he was terrible. I'm sorry. I don't mean to, if you still have, feelings for your boyfriend or whatever, right? He was just awful or whatever. And then the person in front of the guy, there's a woman who's like, wait a minute, did you say this guy's name? Like, I was his music teacher. And so like it keeps going on like that and everything. And I won't spoil what happens in this one story, but it gets you.
I just read the synopsis on Wikipedia, and you're good for not spoiling because holy shit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's fantastic. The first story is great. And then there's several other stories. There's the one that I didn't really like that much was the one where the waitress who there's a guy who comes in who's a big time gangster, and he I think he killed her family or killed a friend. I can't remember what it was, but when she mentions this to one of her coworkers is like, well, let's just poison his ass, and let's just, and so there's this whole thing at the restaurant. Then there's one where this guy who's actually the same guy who was in The Secret in Their Eyes. He has he gets his car towed in a place where he says that there was nothing marked that says I couldn't park here and all that. And he starts railing against the system, but he rails against the system so much that he ends up like basically like losing his whole life out of it. His wife is like, just pay the money and just go. But he's like, no, I have principles and I'm not going to let this go, and blah, 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 blah. And so that story is fantastic. They saved the best one, I think, for last though. And it's this wedding where, right after they've gotten married. And of course, as Jeremy alluded to, they probably went off into the room and saw each other naked and then came back.
I love that practice. We need to adopt that in the future.
Yes.
See what you got.
But it's a wedding reception, and the bride has sort of become aware that her new husband had to have cheated on her with this woman who is at the reception. And from there, this wedding reception spirals out of control. She confronts him about it. He finally admits, yes, I did it. Then she goes up on the roof and she's trying to, calm down and everything. Even more crazy shit happens from there, which I will not spoil. But Wild Tales is another fantastic movie. I don't think I've ever actually thought of like Argentina as far as their films are concerned, but two that I've seen are fantastic. Oh, there's another great one too, where there's a guy who gets pissed off he's driving along a road. He gets pissed off at this guy for going too slow on the road. He drives past him, flips him off, all this other shit, and like, fuck you, and then moves on. But then his car breaks down. And the guy who he flipped off catches up to him, and all sorts of crazy shit ensues from that. Wild Tales is fun as fuck, man. That is a great like that. The time you won't even know where the time went on this one. This one is that good. It's that fun. So yeah, get out and watch that movie immediately.
Where did you find these, Chris? Do you remember?
Secret in Their Eyes, and I believe both Secret in Their Eyes and Wild Tales were rentals off of Amazon.
Yeah,
okay.
Looks like I might have to rent that Wild Tales movie though. That's crazy.
No, that sounds awesome. Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, look, both of those movies are great. Wild Tales is the one that's like the most fun out of that group. So if you're just like looking for something like kind of breezy and just like, oh my God, jaw dropping, all these different things. It's so fun. There's
an entire episode of Frasier where he pulls into a parking garage and decides not to park and tries to leave. And Luis Guzman is the parking attendant who wants to make him pay. It's like that scene in Fargo. Like you pulled in, even though you didn't park, you have to pay. You still owe the $4 or whatever. And Frasier is very much like your guy in that snippet. I'm a man of principle. I'm not paying it. I didn't park here. And the whole episode, finally, Niles talks him into 20, 30 cars backed up behind him. Niles talks him into paying it, and he goes to pay it. And Luis Guzman is like, it's been more than 30 minutes. You now owe $8. I am going to
somebody 5 cars behind him honks the horn so violently that he sprains his knee.
Yeah, yes. That was me in real life. I'm going to wreck-a-warn the movie Judy, starring Renee Zellweger as Judy Garland.
Oh, yeah.
I'll just say the good. She's really good. I really think that's all the movie has going for it. Is like the movie might as well have been called Renee Zellweger's Judy Garland. It's very clear they're going for an Oscar, and she nails it. I don't know if she's doing a good Judy Garland. I don't have a lot of late life Judy Garland experience in terms of her singing or how she spoke. But the performance is really engaging. The entire point of this movie is just that everyone has used her entire life and addicted her to these uppers and downers. And so she's about to go on stage for this revival concert, and they find her in her underwear with mascara running and drunk and all hopped up on all the pills. And they stumble her together in an outfit and get her out there on stage, and she fucking nails it. Even though she is zonked. That's a great scene. It's a great performance, but God, this movie is depressing as fuck. It's just watching people give her pills and then flashing back to when she is a child and they're building sound stages next door for Wizard of Oz, and some studio guy gives her pills. And she's at the diner and she wants to have a hamburger, and the lady who's her handler is really mean and won't let her eat anything because they have to keep her thin, and makes her have these pills because it'll take away the hunger. But then it'll keep me up at night. We have more pills for that then. And it apparently, I'm not trying to make light. Apparently this was what happened to Judy Garland in that she was recognized very early on as a massive talent that people could make a lot of money on. And they set about manipulating her as often as possible. And I think the movie's point is that she was this great talent that we just, as a society, we just let dwindle away and be used. There is a really touching scene where she meets a gay couple outside her concert who come every single night. And she's got nothing better to do. So she goes home with them, and they cook her eggs and they play piano and they bond, and she gets to be like a normal person for the night. And that's a nice scene too. But overall, this movie is just depressing. And it literally, remember when I joked about Miles Teller drinking so much alcohol in that one movie that was like hitting you over the head with the fact that he's this movie doesn't need more than 20% of the pills she takes, but she takes 80% more after that. It's to every scene she's in, she's taking pills, and I'm like, again, maybe that's real life, but at some point as a viewer of a movie, I get it already. And I almost wish, because they did go back and show the early childhood bits in flashbacks, I almost wish they'd have done a biography of her whole life. So we could have seen some more of the prime of her career. We could have seen some happy moments here and there, but we focus on the very end when everyone's abandoned her and she's divorced and, no one's taking care of her except the pills. And it's a very, very depressing movie. And if you're a Zellweger fan or a Judy Garland fan, then watch it because you're going to love it. But if you're neither one of those things, I wouldn't waste your time.
Mm-hmm. She won the Oscar for this, right?
Yeah.
I think so. So she's certainly good enough to have deserved it.
She at least got nominated. Let me look this up real quick.
Do you know what age she was when she died, Jeremy? Because she was young.
The real person?
Yeah.
She was in her 50s?
Oh, well, I mean, young-ish, I guess. I thought she was even younger than that.
Let's see. Yeah, she was. She was 45.
Oh, wow.
Renee Zellweger won. It also got nominated for like makeup and hairstyling and stuff like that. So,
and that stuff's all.
That's
good.
what I hear, is that it's basically a performance piece for her, right?
It is, and she's great. It was so fucking depressing. Most biopics give me some depressing, but also some highlights, some good times, some happy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This is like Walk the Line if the whole movie was just the death of his brother.
Yeah.
The wrong kid died.
Yeah, I guess they get filmmakers will get in their head is like, this is an American tragedy, so let's make it all bad all the time. I mean, even Romeo and Juliet had good moments in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's got to be something that leads you to go, oh, that was an American tragedy. There was so many good things about her life and everything. And maybe it does in its subtle way explain that there are good things.
The movie is just that performance I told you about where she snaps it together because she's such a pro and she's done it so many times. I think that is the movie saying, this was a great American tragedy. Look how timeless she was as a performer. but even though that's a great scene, it didn't hit me emotionally that way at all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, especially since she's on pills during that scene. So it's not like, we're seeing a sort of, I don't know. I've heard stories like this before of performers, and I'm like, how many shows are, I mean, maybe not even legendary, but there's a lot of legendary shows out there where people who probably shouldn't even be like out of bed, and they're somehow hammering 3 hours of a concert and probably still taking even more stuff during the concert itself.
Yep.
How many of those stories are out there? I mean, God, there's got to be hundreds and maybe thousands.
Well, movie-wise, it reminds me of the end of Vox Lux, where, I mean, Natalie Portman is catatonic, essentially. And it's exactly what you've said here, is that, she's stumbling backstage and she can barely get her shit on, but all of a sudden she gets out there and fucking kills it. And you're like, oh, yeah, all right. Well, I guess you could do it. Elvis was famous for doing this, speaking of Elvis, from your last one. Yeah, so it's possible. That wasn't your last one. That was a long time ago. Okay. Are you ready for a recommend? I'm going to tip my hand to one of, if not my favorite movie of the year. And it's called The Sound of Metal.
Oh.
And didn't have a whole lot of expectations going into this. It's Riz Ahmed and Olivia Cook are playing the main two characters. They are in a band together, kind of a two-piece White Stripes-ish band, except hardcore screamcore, I guess you would call it. It's metal, but it's not.
She's the lead. Yeah,
she's the lead singer. It's not Slayer or anything like that you would think.
Right.
But he's the drummer. She's the singer. Riz Ahmed got ripped. Learned drums over 6 months. Learned how to play drums. And man, this movie starts off with a nice little thing. They play a show, and then they've got this wonderful Airstream tour bus. It's not opulent or anything like that. It's got a bedroom in the back. It's got a little mobile studio in the middle of it. He drives. She naps right next to him and just kind of hangs out. And the entire journey from the first show to the next show is adorable. They are constantly talking. They are asking about life questions. They're playing little bits of trivia and stuff like that. You can tell they have an idyllic relationship. You can tell also that he's taken very, very good care of himself. He's not out there living the rock and roll lifestyle. They're getting up early and getting like Iron Man smoothies and stuff like that, and doing exercises and that kind of thing. And you're like, well, this is a nice little story. Turns out at the second show that we see, when they're prepping, and they're not a big band, they're just they booked a tour and they've got a few albums out. The band's name is Black Gammon, which I think is kind of cool. They've got some press there, but you can tell they're up and coming. They're not established or anything like that. And at the second show, he has this moment where his hearing goes out. And the beautiful thing about this movie is the sound design. The sound design also takes the hearing out. Like, you hear the very, very muffled voices in the background. And you can tell what he doesn't do immediately is do the, oh my God, what's going on? It's all very, very subtle. He's like, what's going on here? I don't know what's happening. Then eventually, like, he'll touch his ear and he'll be like, oh, what's going on? And then it goes through this series of him having to find something. They're in the middle of Missouri, in the middle of a fucking tour, so they're not at home. He's got to find a person that can treat him and to figure out what's going on. He has no clue what's going on. Ends up with an audiologist that tells him, basically, your hearing's not going to come back unless you get these cochlear implants. And from there, it goes on. So you've got, the sound of metal makes you think that it's a music movie, like Whiplash or something like that. you've got the deafness and stuff like that. So you're like, oh, okay, I've got this kind of figured out. You've got the relationship with Olivia Cooke. I've got to get this kind of figured out. Turns out he's a recovering addict. He was very, very deeply into drugs. And so the movie expertly balances all of those things. The recovery and the sobriety, the deafness that comes on, the relationship with his girlfriend, and the music is actually probably the least amount of time that they spend on this. He ends up going to a sober living community for deaf people, which does exist, led by this guy named Joe, who's played by Paul Rocky, who I'd never seen before. Chris, have you seen him in anything before?
No, he looked vaguely familiar, but I haven't seen him before.
He is apparently in real life, the actor is the son of deaf people, and I think they're called CODA, children of deaf adults. Riz Ahmed learned sign language, ASL, for this. Paul Rocky speaks in sign language, even though he says he reads lips. They all speak in sign language. And the best part of this fucking movie is the scenes in the middle of everybody interacting at the deaf and hearing impaired community. It's not only a sober living community, it's also a school. It's also, there's a bunch of different factions on this commune. And it is absolutely a look into the hard of hearing deaf community that I have never seen before. Again, the sound design is incredible here because when it goes into him not hearing anything, you don't hear anything, at least for a period of time. When it goes into communicating with sign language with ASL, they don't give you subtitles. They let you figure it out through context clues. Now, occasionally they'll go back to just regular conversation where you can hear it. There's a point later on in the movie that takes a turn sound-wise that I could not predict, and I could not even imagine what this actually sounds like. And it's beautifully done. The last thing I'll say about this is that there are several conflicts. This guy ain't perfect. This guy ain't like a white horse or anything like you're riding in on a white horse. He's kind of an asshole. He's a rebellious dude. Like he loves Olivia Cooke's character, but he's also a former addict that lies and cheats and steals and stuff like that and grifts, and he ain't perfect. And the movie's not interested in redeeming him all the way. But when they do have conflicts in this movie, they're resolved, and this has been written about quite a bit, they're resolved by kindness. And they're not resolved by, not that there isn't any anger in this movie or, protests or not violence on people, but violence, outwardly. The interpersonal conflicts are solved by listening to each other, understanding each other, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Matthew Amalric, wonderful French actor, is in this playing Olivia Cooke's father. Jeremy, I would totally recommend this to you, not for any specific reason, but I think it's just a spectacular movie. Spectacular.
I have been afraid of this movie because I am losing my hearing, and I decided to go ahead and read a synopsis to see what I was getting into. And I'm not sure I'm going to watch it. I think I get what you're saying. But knowing two things about the end of the movie, one I think would crush me, and one I think would just make me angry. So I may watch it down the road.
I understand.
You're far from the first person to recommend it to me. And we can talk off book about what those things are, but the movie's so fresh, I don't want to spoil anything for anybody.
No, I understand that. And me personally not having any appreciable loss of hearing, it's hard for me necessarily to put myself in somebody else's shoes that is having that. Yeah. Unless I experience, and this is a way for me to experience that. Obviously, it's not totally immersive or anything like that, but it is a good window into what that may feel like, what they may sound like, and it does just an incredible job sound design wise. I totally understand what you're saying. But I think it's a spectacular movie. I think
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. I'm not trying to take away from that.
Chris, you saw this, right?
Yeah, I really liked it. There are a couple of moments that I don't like, and it's mainly where the movie is sort of fast forwarding to certain things, basically, that I think deserve to be explored a little bit more. When he first joins that commune, or whatever it is they call it, what is it called? It's not a commune, but it's
I mean, it like a hard of hearing center. It's basically like the blind school in Bird Box at the end.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
When he joins them, obviously he's reticent to and hesitant to join them. He wants to get on with his life. He wants to continue drumming. He wants to do all this stuff. And he leaves, and there's a scene, and it's a great scene, with him and a kid on the top of the slide, and they bang the slide, and as sort of a communication to each other and everything. Very next scene, he's in that commune. He is a part of it. He's suddenly learned everything. He's learned sign language. All this stuff that's tough has already been smoothed over at this point. And then there's another point where he is thinking about leaving, and he goes to that Joe guy. And now that scene, there's that scene, and then there's another scene with Joe later that's phenomenal, and especially the way that they edit it is phenomenal. But the one where he goes and Joe's like, "You're very important here, and I would like you to stay here," and everything. We never really see his importance. We do see him showing people how to drum and things like that, which is a nice scene. But like his importance, his being integral to the community, not really feeling that as the way the movie does it, because it doesn't get there to that. It doesn't give you that really. He's just immediately like as fast as it goes. It's unbelievable how fast he gets into he's into the community, because they cut from "I don't like this" to "I love this" to "I love this" to "I need to get out of here." And there's no inciting incident to any of those things. And so that's what was my main problem with the movie. There are outstanding dynamite scenes in this. Don't get me wrong. I don't dislike the movie. I just felt like there was a little something lacking from it when it came down to that. And I feel like some of the challenges, they kind of skate over it a little bit, and I was a little disappointed in that.
Yeah, I can see that. It does get a little montagey, but man, I was so along for the ride that I think it's almost a perfect movie for me. Now, it ain't like a happy-go-lucky, you're going to skip to my loo after this. But it's I think genius. I think it's absolutely fantastic.
No, it's very good. I would recommend it myself. It's just that there were a couple of moments in there I was like, you need to be a little bit more, get us more into this community than you are at this point for me to really like hang on and say, yeah, these decisions are either, yeah, they're devastating or they're not. Like when he decides that he wants to leave, it doesn't feel devastating to me. Like it does later. It does later when he goes and talks to Joe later. But the moment that he's like, when Joe asks him if he wants to stay, I was like, gosh, man, there's got to be something in there besides what we've already seen that has told him, I love this community, but I'm going to make the sacrifice to leave it because, I'm still that guy from before, which doesn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense to me. Anyway, yeah, good movie. I don't want to be downer about it or anything. I think you recommend. It's perfectly valid, Barrett. It's valid. I want you got validation from me.
Thank you.
And that's what's important. Anyway, that's going to do it for this. We don't ever end shows on recommends and warns, so it's kind of weird.
No, we went through a bunch. That was fun. That was a good one.
What I love is that you publicly asked for questions on Twitter and we didn't get to any of them. So all those people are going to be like, we may want to do a question and answer episode soon.
Let's do it. Let's really dive into that. Get elbow deep into those questions.
I am down. There were a lot of good ones that came in even after you sent the agenda. So
we'll do a Q&A next week just to get our mailbag emptied.
Let's empty our sacks.
The recommends and warns. I recommended The Secret in Their Eyes and Wild Tales, both movies from Argentina. Both of them fantastic. You can't go wrong with those two movies. Jeremy recommended documentaries, The Kingdom of Silence and Emmanuel. Kingdom of Silence is about Jamal Khashoggi, and Emmanuel is about the church that Dylan Roof is famous for, unfortunately. Infamous for, I guess. And he warned Judy, the Renee Zellweger, Judy Garland movie. Barrett warned The Midnight Sky, and boy, did he warn the fuck out of it. Don't want The Midnight Sky.
He don't belong to anyone.
Listen to the Miley Cyrus song. Don't watch the movie. Listen to Miley Cyrus.
And he recommended Sound of Metal. I can also attach myself to that recommendation. So that's going to do it for this week. Keep going to SinCast presented by Cinemasins on Facebook. We're also on Cinemasins Twitter, Music Video Sins Twitter. We're on Discord. If you want to get on Discord, go to our Reddit page and find a link on the right side there. Or you can go on Facebook and private message me, and I will give you a link there. We're also on SoundCloud. But that's going to do it for this week. It's Chris Atkins and Jeremy Scott and Barrett Sher. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Comment on our episodes on our SoundCloud page. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. And be sure to visit cinemasins.com.
Xfinity is still trying to reclaim the cable box from my old house. And I'm just like, that shit is gone forever.
What the hell?
It's not coming back.
And how old is that shit, too?
It's ancient, 10 years old. You don't want that. You just want money, right? And I'm willing to pay you now. Stop harassing me.
I watched Wonder Woman 1984 last night.
Oh, yeah?
That could be the worst movie I've seen in many years.
Wow. I've
Really?
heard bad things.
I didn't like it. I didn't find it objectionable, though. Was it the tediousness and the length and stuff like that?
Yeah. Pedro Pascal, here he gets this it's a monkey's paw type thing. And he wants to become the stone. That's his wish. He wants to become that. And so instead of just turning into a fucking stone, which he should have, it's still Pedro Pascal, but people can wish on him. And it looks like he's like addicted to people wishing on him and everything, and he wants people to wish on him, but it's not really like explicitly shown that that's a weakness or anything to exploit or anything. And then there's like a lot of weird things about the rules.
He can take other people's shit in return, but I don't think that was ever explained.
He can, but like there's a point where Kristen Wiig's like, I've already made my wish. And he goes, well, who cares? I can give your wish to anybody I want to. And
she does another fucking wish.
She does another fucking wish. And she becomes a goddamn cheetah. And it's like, I mean, she says she wants to be an apex predator. She turns into an actual goddamn cheetah.
Mm-hmm. It looks like Cats. It looks like a shittier version of Cats.
I just want to say that my college girlfriend asked me to wish on her, and I definitely misheard.
Yeah. I mean, it's our greatest fantasy is to wish on women as much as we can, right?
Wish on me, baby.
Well, I've never done that, but okay.
That's a new way of expressing that term, but I'll do it.
I'll do it for you. That's fucking teamwork.
That's right. Wonder Woman 1984 is goddamn tedious, and it even further makes it unbelievable that Batman didn't know that there was a fucking Wonder Woman around in the 1980s. It's the only picture he saw of her. Only picture he saw of her in World War One.
I heard she flies.
She does.
She does.
That's fucking absurd.
Does she do that in the comics, though?
I have never read a Wonder Woman comic. I watched the Super Friends, and she used a jet that was invisible.
Well,
yeah,
and in this one, she does. This is the dumbest thing ever. This comes out of fucking nowhere. Chris Pine gets in a plane, and by the way, Chris Pine coming back into this, she wishes for him to come back, but the only way that he comes back is through some other existing asshole that's like lost his life. and then like they get into a jet and they fly off, and she goes, "Oh geez, yeah, I forgot about you didn't have radar back in the day. They're going to be able to catch us on radar. Well, it's been a long time since I've been able to do this, but." And she just suddenly, like, with some magical powers, or make the jet invisible.
Yeah,
and
just all of a sudden, boom, done.
And it's kind of like the Batman and Robin thing, where the holy rusted metal Batman, and you know, and you go,
it's metal. It's all holy.
It's
and rusty.
metal. It's rusted. It's holy. And that's reminded me of the invisible jet and fucking Wonder Woman. They're just like, well, she had an invisible jet, so why not make it?
Sounds awful.
Why not make it where it's through her mind powers? And yeah, sure, that's something that we've been known Wonder Woman to do.
Yeah. Okay. It's not good. I didn't think it was horrible, but I thought it was bad.
Well,
did you watch it with your kid?
Yeah, I watched it with the whole family, and even my wife, who's a sucker for all this stuff, said the ending. She was like, "Man, that was fucking cheesy." Because it is, man. It's like the bad equivalent of Batman at the end of Dark Knight, going, "That people are good." And you're underestimating Gotham's population. They're good. And it's basically that for like what seems like 20 minutes.
That's exactly how that scene goes. You nailed it.
Yep. Did someone turn on a Blu-ray in here? Because I can hear the fucking dialogue.
I'm paraphrasing. People are good.
Yeah.
You underestimated the people of Gotham's citizenry and voters and commuters.
And bus riders,
pedestrians,
subway makers.
Deep down inside, people are basically good.
That's all I hear, man. People are good. Fucking bad boys. Oh man, you know what? I'm so sick of this fucking DC bullshit. At least with Marvel, they're taking on the world. They're taking on Sokovia. They're taking on. Like they go to Berlin and Siberia and shit like that. My family finally got me into Arrow, even though like I'm starting on season 7, and they're all about saving Starling City, and the Flash is all about saving Central City, and Batman is all about saving Gotham City, and Superman is all about Metropolis, and it's like fucking. There's a great big fucking world out there, people. There's no reason to, like, Starling City in Arrow is constantly under attack. And these people from all over the world are like, we need to eradicate Starling City. And people from all over the world, like Ra's al Ghul, are like, oh, we got to eliminate Gotham. Gotham is the epicenter for all the terribleness in the world. I'm like, fuck you, dude. There's terribleness in, like, Bhutan and fucking, like, Uruguay. And
Biloxi.
shit. Like, what? Yeah, Biloxi.
Where's the Biloxi Batman? That's what
He's all chill. He's all drinking a beer, like with the tank top and some shorts.
Let's make that fucking screenplay. Biloxi Batman. Oh my god!
He's got the mask on, but he's got a tank top on. And some board shorts.
When he's his normal self, he goes out and like mows the lawn and shit.
Goes to the casinos.
yeah. Hits up Tunica and shit.
Man.
My one of my all-time favorite dramatic quote unquote things, I guess you could call it dramatic, is the end of that song on the Muppet Show. When the camera is just coming back and it shows all the different Muppets in that in all those different compartments. This is what we call the Muppet Show. And then Gonzo comes in and ruins.
Yeah.
Fucking Gonzo.
It was Muppets from Space where the Gonzo is an alien thing came from.
Yeah. And Katie Holmes. Well, most of the Dawson's Creek kids are in that movie.
Oh yeah.
Are they really?
Yeah, they were on the beach waiting to see if the aliens are going to come. And there's cameos by I don't think Michelle Williams is in there, but at least 2 or 3 of them are there.
Who had the Michelle Williams had the best post Dawson's career, right? Easily.
Yes.
Clearly.
Yes.
Katie
Josh
Holmes
Jackson
looked like
had a pretty good run because that Fringe show was pretty popular, but
who did?
Joshua Jackson.
Yeah, he was awesome in that.
Yeah, he had decent. He had some he's in the Skulls and shit like that. But
he was in Rules of No, he was in Cruel Intentions. That's right.
Yeah, but Michelle Williams, I think, has been nominated for like 4 Oscars and was an A-list actress and all that. So
has she won one?
I don't think she won one yet. I don't think so. Let me see.
Because for probably about 5 years, it was probably a race between Pacey, Michelle Williams, and Katie Holmes. Because Katie Holmes was getting work until she ran into the Tom Cruise buzzsaw, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that it was that as much as she had a kid and has chosen to work very sparingly and to be a mom first.
I don't think she was ever going to be like an Academy darling, too.
No,
she doesn't seem like she has that range.
No.
The rumor was that when she did Thank You for Smoking, that Tom Cruise didn't want her to do a nude scene or a sex scene with Aaron Eckhart. And that was a big rumor. Who knows if it was true or not? But that right around that time, she got pregnant and all that. So she could have just decided to dedicate her life to being a mommy and all that, which is cool.
How old do you think that Cruise kid is?
Oh, I just saw a headline the other day.
2006, so she's like 14.
Yeah, I was going to say she's a teenager.
Really?
Yeah.
God,
we're old.
She looks exactly like Katie Holmes.
Does she really?
And is about as tall as she is.
And she's tall, right? Katie Holmes is tall.
Katie Holmes is like 5'9", 5'10", somewhere around there.
Hey, Paris Hilton is 39. That's how old you are.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Jesus Christ.
I know.
Oh, I see her. Yeah, she looks adorable.
Yeah. Michelle Williams has been nominated 4 times, has never won.
Okay, let me see if I can name it off. All right, so Blue Valentine?
That's one.
The Marilyn Monroe thing?
Yeah, My Week with Marilyn.
Was she nominated for Manchester by the Sea?
She was.
Okay, damn.
That one's the hardest one.
Okay, I said Blue Valentine. I said My Dinner with Andre.
Species. She was 12 years old. No, she was not nominated for Species.
The last one is hard. God damn.
I mean, it's a famous movie, but it's hard for you to remember that she was nominated for this movie.
Gosford Park?
No,
that was Philippi was in there.
I got to guess. Is it Brokeback?
It's Brokeback.
Yeah.
Ah! What a blind spot. Of course it was Brokeback. Wasn't everybody nominated for Brokeback?
Yes, there are people nominated for Brokeback that weren't in the movie.
Like Jake Gyllenhaal was nominated for that.
That's a crying shame.
It was either Gyllenhaal or Hathaway. One of the other was not nominated.
Oh, wow.
Oh, and they're both Hathaway's so subtle in that movie.
She's great. It may be one of her best performances, actually.
It really is. Oh man!
Besides Dark Knight Rises.
Yes.
And Love and Other
In Dark
Drugs.
Knight Rises, when she says, "You underestimated the people of Gotham and their cat burglary."
The people of Pittsburgh, of Gotham, are good.
Yeah, Anne Hathaway was the one that was not nominated out of.
Oh, poor lady. She won for Les Mis, though, right? After like 16 seconds of
She won for Les Mis, yes.
Screen time.
Anne Hathaway has been nominated twice. You would think it was more, but she's only been nominated.
All right, hold on. The other one wasn't Devil Wears Prada, right?
Nope.
That was Meryl Streep was nominated for that one, though, right?
She was, yes.
Okay, the other one was Rachel Getting Married.
That's what she got nominated for.
She's excellent in that, man. She's such a bitch in that.
Considered her one of her breakouts was Rachel Getting Married.
They are so up your alley that you will spontaneously get hard nipples.
Nice. I've never.
Is there a verb for
spontaneously gotten hard nipples before?
Is there a verb for getting hard nipples, like nippling? Like
No.
it will cause you to nipple?
No,
I'm not going to Google that.
there isn't. I'm sure there is actually, but it was like something that was used in the 1300s, and we don't use it anymore.